Welcome, everybody. It's January the 23rd, 2026. This is going to be episode number 81 of Into the Fire. It's pre-recorded, but I know that there's a room full of people in the audience that are checking us out, and I appreciate that. The original plan tonight was for me to be on stage here in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Tulsa Police Museum event, and what happened was basically you're going to be watching it tomorrow night, which is Friday night. And what happened was that we are having a weather event that is going to affect millions and millions of people throughout the southern United States, actually coming from eastern Arizona almost all the way to the coast in Virginia and North Carolina. And quite frankly, it was too unpredictable with respect to our show. I'll tell you what, we sold out the event. The event basically was 200 seats, and it was very, very strict to 200 seats. And I had told them beforehand that if we didn't sell out this event, that it was going to be somewhat of a failure in my mind. So I really, really pushed hard to get as many of these tickets sold as possible. And we have had to reschedule that event for February the 6th. And there's the little flyer. If you go to my Detective Jason White YouTube page, or if you go to Detective Jason White YouTube, my Instagram, or you go to my Detective Jason White Facebook page, you will be able to find additional information in reference to that, as well as the Tulsa Police Museum Facebook page. And there is a tremendous amount of information in reference to their museum, their effort, nevertheless, etc. February the 6th, we're going to redo this. It was postponed till February the 6th. And I will tell you this, if you're interested in going, even though the event is sold out, trust me, email the museum. If you go to their Facebook page, you can email them. There's an email link there. If you email them, just let them know that you're interested, and you never know, they might be able to work something out. I will caution people, though, I will caution you about this. Don't fall for signing up or somebody going, hey, I've got tickets for sale, reach out to me, that kind of jazz. You need to do that it's okay to communicate, say, hey, whatever, what's your name? But you need to communicate directly with the museum, because believe it or not, there are scammers out there that are looking for ways to rip you off. And it happened once when I was speaking at the U.S. Marshal Museum in Arkansas. So do not fall for that. So what I would recommend is just go to their email page, go to their email from their Facebook page, and just let them know that you're interested. They can put you on a list. And if somebody cancels or they're looking to get rid of their tickets because of scheduling, then that might be your way to join us. And I've already been able to help a couple of people today to do that. So tonight's going to be a very, very special guest. I'm really looking forward to having him on. I've been communicating with him a little bit. Our last week's guest had talked about him a few different times, and I thought he spoke very highly of him. And I thought, well, what better person to bring on here than bring him on and talk about it. He's a fingerprint expert, and tell you a little bit about him, because I don't want to take too much of his time. Basically, Brian O'Hara he basically runs a forensic consulting firm, and he'll talk a little bit about that. But he is highly experienced and a certified latent print examiner, certified by the International Association of Identification, with over 41 years of experience in crime scene investigation. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. 41 years. That's more than most people that are going to be tuning into this podcast have been on the planet. And so it's fun. We were talking to him before the show. He's got a mother load of stories, which we'll just be able to scratch the surface. But not only does he have a tremendous amount of experience in crime scene investigation, but also forensic analysis and evidence examination. He's retired lieutenant from the Massachusetts State Police. And in addition to working with them, he also worked as a latent print examiner with the Department of Defense, the Boston Police Department, the Houston Police Department, and I'm probably mispronouncing this, but the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. I know I screwed that up, but that's in Florida. And he also just completed a book that is soon to be released called The Rest of the Story, a memoir by Brian O'Hara. And it's not out yet, but it is coming out. And the moment that it does come out in print, and he's basically talking to the publisher as we speak, he is going to let us know, and we'll probably bring him back on to talk about that book. And until then, we're going to bring him on. This should be a great, talk about a fingerprint expert guru, the king of fingerprinting, really. I don't know if too many people out there. Maybe Henry Lee can probably, I'm sure you know Henry Lee. You're probably buddies with him.
I do know Henry Lee. I'll talk about Henry Lee.
Good. So first off, hey, welcome, Brian. I appreciate you being here. You're somebody really special in this industry, I have no doubt.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a real honor here to talk about, like your life stories, cases you've been involved in. We live them, we dream them at night. That's the problem.
And that's the whole premise of the show, Brian, is that I like to bring people in here that have made a real impact and moved mountains in our industry of criminal justice. And you certainly fit the bill. So it is a complete honor. The honor is all ours. I promise you that. So how did you get involved? You live up, obviously, and I should have thrown up my little, his accent from time to time you're going to enjoy, because he's definitely from Massachusetts for sure.
Like I say R's. I absolutely use all my R's.
Yes, you do. So, but anyway, it's great to have you here. Tell us, how did you end up getting involved in this industry to begin with? What interested you?
Well, it's not like your story. I heard at 6, you wanted to be a detective. Okay.
Yep.
I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, in the city. I never saw a Mass State Trooper in my life. Actually, I did. I was about 16 and I saw this 6'4" hulk of a man driving in a brand new car. And, I knew he was a state trooper, but that's the only trooper I ever saw. So when I was in college, I went to Boston University. A friend of mine said, let's take the test. So we walked across the street from where we were living, and I took the test. Well, 5 years later, I'm in the retail business as a manager of a card and gift shop. And I get a call from the state police, and they go, because the governor at the time was Michael Dukakis, and he only put on 1 class in 5 years. So again, like then, the police were down. So they said, you have 2 weeks to let us know if you want to be a trooper. I'm like, oh my gosh, my wife is just pregnant. We just got married, and I'm going to leave her for 6 months. And she agreed to do it. Actually, it was the best thing that ever could have happened. Anyway, I did 2.5 years on the road. And I was traveling 70 miles to the barracks where I was working out of, and never volunteered for anything. I volunteered for the job that I was doing, but no one knew that we were going to get new cruisers, new radars, and 3 hours every hour for overtime. So everybody was pissed at me, a rookie, taking that job. And anyway, so I put in there was an opening into the headquarters for what was then called the photography and fingerprint section, because really there was no forensics. And so I went in. They showed you the usual pictures of bodies, and it didn't affect me. So I got the job. Didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I died and went to heaven. So for the first 5 years, I was the only trooper in the whole state of Massachusetts on evenings in crime scenes. So I went to everything: plane crashes, train crashes, deaths. Stolen cars. Where I learned my trade was stolen cars. We had an auto theft unit. I did all the stolen cars, and I would get hits for them. And so fingerprints became a passion with me. But in 1986, there's a picture of me with Michael Dukakis. He bought us a new APHIS machine. And before that, I counted how many fingerprint identifications we made in a year throughout the state. 200. I mean, nothing. It was. So once we got the APHIS, it was an NEC APHIS. You had to trace the prints, but it was a great system. And all of a sudden, it was like pulling the slot machine on, hits. I just throw the prints in, and it would get a hit. So I did that for 12 years, and but I got burned out, and the building we were in was condemned. We didn't have hoods. Oh yeah, this is unbelievable. So today, if you watch a CSI. Everybody has gloves. Everybody has boots. They have Tyvek suits. I didn't have gloves. I'd go to a scene in a suit as a crime scene officer, blood, guts. And I have to borrow gloves from an EMT to pick up the evidence. So we had no budget. One time I had to call the colonel because there was no film. He had to okay me to go buy film. There was no budget for this. No one cared. No one cared. But that changed, as you know, OJ. So in 1980, so I had left the scene. I left the crime scene for.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Brian. What year was it when you actually started with the Massachusetts State Police to begin with?
1978.
Okay, and then so you're talking about a couple of years. Then you're starting to do this. So we're talking 1980-ish.
1980, November of 1980.
Okay, and so it's coming a long ways. But so what we're just out of curiosity, just real quick, and I'll probably jump around here. I apologize, but were you when you in your off time, and it sounded like you were pretty busy, but were you just sitting there trying to compare prints to fingerprint cards just to see if you'd get lucky?
The majority, yes. No, that's it. You had to have a name. You didn't have, you didn't have a name. You're going all over the state. You had to get a local detective to come up with a name. Know the person. So that was rare. That was rare. But around Boston, I had great detectives. They all lifted prints. They all came in, and I would get hits for them. So when we got the APHIS, I got more hits than anything. But so yeah, most of the time, you know what we did most of the time? Photography. Well, so that's me with Governor Dukakis. I took his prints and put them in the system and hit, to demonstrate that the system worked. But I was a senior trooper in the section at the time. So I ended up entering and verifying all these prints. And that's where I developed a really good eye. Mm-hmm. But I got burned out. So I left for 3 years. Why? Because I used to sit here, eat my lunch, fume super glue behind my desk with no vent, min hydrant, chemicals, get headaches. And finally I left. So while I was gone, Colonel Kennedy, great guy, he was able to get some money for a new lab. So they built a new lab. My boss invited me back to become a homicide scene supervisor. I was now a sergeant at the time. And these cases that I'm going to talk about are solved because of him. Okay, he brought me back. And then it's the training that I got from the FBI, from the International Association of Identification, from Northeast forensic scientists, I started the local chapter of the New England division of IAI. I was one of the founding members, and there's only a few of us left. But all that training gives training to all the local police and state police. And I've trained hundreds of state police officers in fingerprints and crime scene. So
what's the difference? What's the difference today compared to what it was like for you to become back then, did they just say, okay, you're a fingerprint guy, you're just a fingerprint examiner, whereas today there's a lot more, I'm guessing, I don't do that kind of thing, but I'm guessing that just the college curriculum to become a forensic scientist is unreal,
So in Massachusetts, it's uniformed troopers that are the crime scene and latent examiners, but that's coming to an end. I saw it coming to an end because, I dealt with examiners all over the country, and most of them have for civilians. But today, to be a trooper, wear a camera, you have to go do all the training for that. You can't do the training for latents. And the troopers don't want to lift. They just found out, they don't want to do the work. So we went like this. We went from 1980, 86, whoa, the 90s, OJ, DNA, APHIS. Now we're going down because you have to do so much, and the troopers aren't doing it. So so they're going to be going. They do have a couple of one civilian now, and probably bringing in more civilians to do the latent work. The troopers can still do the crime scenes, but
all right. So. Well, I just want to start off kind of talking about the history of fingerprints a little bit. Who was the person that really started that up, and then let's talk about that incident that happened in Leavenworth. But start off with who's the person that kind of started up fingerprints.
So it's a good friend of mine. So back in 1896, when I was in England, Sir Francis Galton is his name, and he's considered the father of fingerprints. So he's the one that developed, there's a whole series of, from the 1600s where people began to look at fingerprints, but he took it to where he could bring it to Scotland Yard and say, hey, you can identify this guy. So it began to be used then. So then one person came over to the 1903 World's Fair. Ferrier, I think is his name, and he demonstrated the fingerprints. Well, it began to be used first in upstate New York in a mental institution, and then this particular case that you're going to show, it's called the West case. And so this James West was brought into the, forgetting his first name, but his name is West. They bring Will, there you go.
Will.
Thank you. Will West, bring him into the prison, and the jail guards go, he's already here. So they go to the cell, and no, they thought he escaped. So they bring him together, and you'll see that they look exactly the same. There's only what I can see in the hairline. There's a little difference, but they look identical. So back then they used something called the Bertillon system. Alphonse Bertillon was a French forensic examiner, and his father was an anthropologist. So he used those measuring tools to measure the arms, your height when you sit, and they would mark it down on a that's how they identified people before fingerprints. So, but this changed the whole identification in the United States, and it began to be used after this case in Leavenworth prison, and then it spread throughout the country. And today we have, it's unbelievable.
Hey, what is the purpose of a fingerprint on a human being? Or
well, they're unique. So they're formed in the 10 to 17th week in the womb, which is pretty unbelievable. So you're this big, and they don't change after the 17th week. So that's why we can say fingerprints are unique, and they're only yours. And because the ridges on the fingerprints come out at different times. As you're growing, one ridge comes over here, one comes over there, and the patterns are formed at different times. Some people are arches, some people are whorls. Depends on how you grow in the mother's womb. But yeah. So
and what is that? What does it actually do for us? These fingerprints that we have in ridges.
It's called friction skin, and it's the only way we can grab stuff. You can't grab stuff with your calf, but you can hold on to the things. So when someone touches a surface, they leave behind an impression. The impression is made up of 98% water. So you're always perspiring. You wipe it off, more perspiration comes out. But everybody thinks, oh, he touched that. There's a fingerprint there. No, doesn't mean there's a fingerprint. It depends on the surface, how much pressure. Like a lot of people use a lot of salt. So they may leave more salts in their fingerprint or fats. There might be fats. And these are different substances chemicals that we can bring out in a fingerprint later on. And that's how the science is developed. Back when I started in 1980, it was like I was in 1896. We had white powder and black powder and a brush. I'd go to a scene and that's all I had. There was no lights. There was no, I wasn't even trained in foot tracks. I asked a senior trooper one day, I said, who does foot tracks? And this is, you may have experienced the same thing. He goes, not our job. He was a lazy, no good son of a gun. I paid no attention to him. And I began to learn about foot tracks on my own. And one of these cases in the book became crucial because I cast a foot track and with dental stone. Have you ever used dental stone when you were in?
Yeah. Well, no, I did. We did it very, very rarely. We did, and I've heard that the reason why we used it is because it sets real quick, like 30 minutes or something along those lines, 30 to 40 minutes, right? Yeah. So this particular case, a mother and her 2 kids were killed, and her baby. She was pregnant. So not this case, no. It's not one of these cases that I'm going to talk about, but we digress to it. Anyway, I cast this track, and when I got it back in the office, I washed it off. On the side of the track was the name Converse, okay, which is unbelievable. And that became critical in the case. So foot tracks are my passion. I try every time I train, I go, you got to look for foot tracks. Everybody misses them. And you might touch the window when you break in, but you're going to walk 1,000 steps when you're in that place. So, and you might step on something, but so. Well, I mean, for me, I mean, I think that when you say footprints, and I mean, I'm talking like shoe prints and stuff. There's like 4 cases that really come to mind for me, and that's the Night Stalker case where there's only 2 of the Avia shoes in the entire state of California, which is mind-boggling to me. I can't even understand that really. And then you have the Lindbergh baby. I think that's one that there might have been some shoe prints.
Really, I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, if you don't know it, then maybe I'm wrong. But the JonBenet Ramsey case, of course, there was high-tech boots outside of the window, and then God, what was it? Well, O.J. Simpson.
O.J. is the famous
That's
one. Yeah. So
yeah, it's a biggie. Yeah,
Bruno
so
Marley's, and the expert in that case, okay, Bill Boziak, was involved in several cases that I did, and that one that I got the name Converse on it, unbelievable. He came to the scene. He went before we testified, and he wanted to see the soil. Well, the soil was peat moss. Okay, if you have Cochrane boots, you know, Cochrane boots or police boots, whatever brand it is, with the vibrant soles, you can jump all day long and not leave a foot track. So he came and he said, the only way this foot track got there, it had rained. It rained 1.6 inches. So we put a time on the foot track, okay, which is, he was great. He was unbelievable. And I actually later got training from him, which opened my eyes to the world of foot tracks. And I solved many cases with foot tracks.
what other kind of prints are on a person? Any other types of prints on a human being other than footprints, you know, on the bottom of your feet? How about lips, ear prints?
Oh, yeah, I have a great case on lip prints. Okay, so this guy gets shotgunned in Malden, Massachusetts. 3 guys go in, shoot him. They leave behind a bag, and the bag has a mask, one of the plastic masks. I get a fingerprint on the plastic mask, but they leave behind duct tape, gray duct tape. So I look on the duct tape, and here's this perfect set of lips. They would go in and tie up people, you know, with the duct tape. So I had to, eliminate the 3 suspects. I had to go to prison. I bought some lipstick. I had them put the lipstick on, and I took their impressions. That was the best part of the whole case, if you know. But yeah, that was insane. But it wasn't them. It was some other victim on the tape. But that was. And I've had a couple of lip prints cases. Yeah.
And I worked a murder a long time ago, and I'm glad we're kind of talking about that. It's just try to get people an idea that there's other prints out there that could prove to be useful. I worked one murder one time, and it was years ago where I was helping another detective on it, and we had bloody footprints in the scene, and that's pretty unusual. I mean, it's not beyond. I mean, it happens. But the thing that I've wanted to do, Brian, and I don't know, I'm sure that there's a documented case about this, but I would love to have these bloody footprints, and then we identify a suspect, and I'd love to go back to the parents and say, hey, do you happen to have that fingerprint card that you got when they were born, where they do the footprints and the handprints? Have you ever heard of one of your colleagues somewhere, or anybody having a case like that where they use that?
Yeah, we have had to do that. So we have had to do that. My boss actually in around 1980 did it. You know, I haven't had any cases, but he did. And yeah, you can do it. The prints usually, like anything else, most fingerprint cards, most fingerprints, everybody says, oh, he was arrested and sent to the FBI. No, he wasn't. The card was never sent to the FBI, always rejected. In Massachusetts, in the 80s, we had 50% of our fingerprints taken by police officers rejected from the FBI. So you think he's in the system. He's not. It's unbelievable. So you got to tell your investigators, you think he was arrested in Massachusetts and you can't see him in the FBI, you got to check the state police.
Yeah. Not to mention you have other databases that are available to you if you look into them, the military, and probably some government agencies of some sort.
Well, now you can get civilian cards. So we're getting hits on the civilians, if the applications. So that is okay. In some states won't, Massachusetts won't, but you can get a hit through the FBI. Yeah, so that's a huge thing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these different types of prints. You had brought a lot of different cases with you that you wanted to kind of highlight, and which one would you like to start off with there of the various cases that you had brought?
I'd like to start with that backhoe, the little bobcat. So Whitey Bulger. So my whole career, even though I didn't know it, involved Whitey Bulger. I had cases that I didn't know he was involved or things he had done. So in this particular case, I get a call one day from a major, a friend of mine. He says, hey, can you dig up bodies? And I'm a lieutenant in charge of 50 troopers across the state. Yeah, I can dig up bodies. So, but I don't know what I'm getting involved in. Okay. So he says, Jack O'Malley, who's another friend, is a detective lieutenant, is going to call me. And these are the real Freilich, Jack O'Malley and Bob Long. These are guys that surveilled him. So when I say my job was safe, these guys were in danger all the time because he knew they were watching him because they were being ratted on. Okay. So it's just unbelievable. Tom Foley right there is another person that took over for those three guys and was chasing Whitey Bulger. And he was always thwarted because there were leaks. But here are two books written on Whitey Bulger. He's the most notorious Massachusetts criminal. His brother on the left was the most corrupt Boston senator, and he was in charge of the Senate in Massachusetts. So, so I get a call. You're going to go to this place called Florian Hall in Dorchester, and I pull up. It's like a movie. Okay, it's lightly snowing. It's 27 above zero, but going to 17 below. So I pull up in my little 1986 Chevy, and he pulls up, roll down the windows, and he tells me, Brian, in about 20 minutes, an SUV is going to come up, and a guy's going to show you where they buried 3 bodies. Well, I've looked for bodies. It's very difficult to find bodies unless they know exactly where it is. So the SUV pulls up, out gets this good-looking guy in chains, handcuffs, and Jack says, hey, Kevin, show Brian where you buried the bodies. And I'm like, what? I'm out of body experience. This is Kevin Weeks. He is Whitey Bulger's right-hand man. Okay. Now Whitey Bulger was convicted of 11 murders, charged with 19, possibly up to 80. And when I tell you what happens in this story, you'll think maybe there's some more. So he walks to the back of this Florian Hall. Now, Florian Hall, I grew up in Boston. My sister got married in this hall. I know it very well. So here I am walking back. He goes, well, I could see the front door of the Florian Hall, and it was right about here, but there was a big tree. So anyway, I take pictures of it, and I call this anthropologist working at the ME's office, Anne-Marie Myers, fantastic anthropologist. We're having a snowstorm. She's in Gloucester. She's an hour and plus away. She has a 10-year-old son. I said, Anne-Marie, we got to dig tonight. She goes, can we do it tomorrow? I said, no. I said, it's going to freeze. The ground will be frozen. And we'll have to put a trooper here for the next 6 months to guard this area. So I had troopers pick her up. They came. Within an hour, we had a backhoe and a bobcat. She told the earth mover to take 4 feet off the ground, where this guy said. We hit a tree. We hit a tree right here. Okay, so we know we're in the right area. The bobcat operator gets in the bobcat, and he goes over one spot. And when you bury a body, you probably know this, air gets trapped and the dirt is not solid. He went down. He felt that with the bobcat, and he stopped. He said, I just felt this. The next time, he made one more pass, and up pops a femur. It's unreal, okay? The doctor says, stop. In an hour, we had tents, we had heaters, we had 50 DEA state police officers shoveling dirt it was an archaeological dig, which, would take you 2 weeks. We did it in 8 hours. But she was this evidence here. Now, Whitey Bulger had never been charged with any crimes, no physical evidence, no forensic evidence. The forensic evidence in this case are what led to his, and Anne-Marie's testimony led to his conviction. So that was, and later on, in the back of the book, I go through all the cases that I actually had with Bulger. But this is, for me, you heard of John Dillinger, you heard of Al Capone, great, well, he is our greatest gangster. Well, I identified his print, okay? So what happened was, that's it, yep, that's him, that's the fingerprint on a Band-Aid. Lieutenant Tim Luce, he was a sergeant at the time, brought me this Band-Aid that he took out, that he found in a car that Bulger drove around for 3 years. Now, we had no DNA, and we didn't know where he was. So one night I get a call, the chemist opened up the Band-Aid, he said, I think there's a fingerprint here. So I had someone go out and look at it, and he said, yeah, the fingerprint's viable. So I took Bulger's card, and I drove 2 hours to the lab that had the Band-Aid, and I identified his print. So for me, that is, one of the greatest cases in fingerprints that I had. I was going to testify in the trial. I had retired, but they didn't call me because they only used the anthropologist and the guys that ratted on him, Kevin Weeks. John
Just in
Matarani.
case, just in case nobody, there's people that are listening to this.
Sorry.
Tell people, just kind of give them a gist as to who Whitey Bulger was to Massachusetts.
Okay, so if you have not seen the movie Black Mass or Departed, it's about Whitey Bulger. Now, Departed is the movie, entertaining, but it wasn't real. Johnny Depp in Black Mass was freaking scary and real. Okay, so it was more to what would happen. But he was a career criminal. He started out in South Boston. His brother was the state senator, but he was a bully. He belonged to one gang. Then he ended up belonging to the Winter Hill gang. Now, what happened is the Winter Hill gang got involved in fixed racing, and Howie Winter went to jail. Whitey Bulger and Stephen Fleming, those are the two bad guys that killed all these people that I dug up. They didn't get charged because the FBI was, supposedly they were informants, but they really weren't. Anyway, they were protected. And so they skated from that. And they skated every time there was a warrant to get an arrest, it was learned. Another time I went on this, I was 2 years in the section. They were going to round up 100 arrest warrants for gaming. So they're going to go South Boston, all over Boston. So I'm going to print 110 people. They came back with 10. Because it was leaked that they were going to be out there, and so this is, it was going to be Whitey Bulger's gaming that was going to be arrested, but that didn't happen. So I was there for that, But
I'll tell you kind of a crazy story. Is that actually he's connected with the Tulsa Hialeah? There's a Tulsa Hialeah murder, and that was when Wheeler. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but
John
my
Wheeler,
boss.
yep.
Yeah, my first boss in homicide actually was a part of that case here in Tulsa, and he and Mr. Wheeler's son, I think they wrote a book together that they just put out recently. But I'll tell you something crazy is that Whitey Bulger, he was on they ended up putting him on the 10 most wanted list, and at some point in time, at least I've heard this story. And golly, I hope I'm right, but I remember this story. I remember hearing it, where he actually went into the Tulsa County Jail, and this is when he's on the 10 most wanted list, and he actually bailed somebody out of jail, believe it or not. And
he was bold. He was bold.
Yeah, and then they actually captured him in Santa Monica, California, really close to where I grew up. I grew up a few blocks from where they captured him. He was living there for a long time, actually, a few years. Yeah. But I mean, I had moved there from there. I've been in this business forever up here, but kind of a crazy deal. So what next on the case list that you would like to kind of highlight here?
The guy with the two fingerprints. It's a 27-year-old cold case. Yeah.
Okay.
Sean Marsh is his name. So what happened is two workers were at a hotel. They had been putting windows all day, construction workers. It's like 98 degrees out. No air conditioning, and they hear something in the back room, and this guy walks out and gets shot right away. He stumbles out of the motel and dies. They pistol whip the other guy, and detectives are called. I get called to the scene. What happened was they were trying to steal a TV. Back then, a color TV was, this is 1983, okay? The TV's bolted down. He's trying to lift it. So one of the hotel workers comes to the alarm, sees these two guys, and there were two black guys, young kids, and they ran out the back window. Okay, so I get to the scene. I met Inspector John Rivers. He told me what it was. I processed the whole room with white powder. No alternate light sources. I got about 29 fingerprints, but under the TV, I had what we would call fresh prints. You can't say that today, because it's not scientific, But when you put the brush, twirl the brush with white powder, it pops like that. It's fresh. But scientifically, you can't say it. So I take all the prints. They thought it might be this particular criminal family. I looked at over 200 fingerprint cards, never an identification. When I came back, when we got now this is 1983. In 86, we got the AFA system. I entered it hundreds of times. Chris Dolan, who was in my book, who's one of the best fingerprint experts and helped solve this case, he kept putting it in. No, don't hit it. So I retired, and 27 years later, Chris is asked to rework the case. He sends the fingerprint So new technology. I believe there's no such thing as an unsolvable crime. Either the evidence was not collected, we don't have the technology, or someone has not come forward with information that will help solve it. So in this case, it's technology. So he sends it to the FBI, and it's the first hit in their new NGI system where you could send in from the state. Before you had to send it to them in the entry. So we get this guy, Sean Marsh. He's not the shooter. John Rivers, the inspector, did a sketch, and it fits Sean Marsh. So he pled guilty. Okay, so it's a good thing because the guy who was the eyewitness died 3 months after. So the case would be more difficult to prove without, and there's never enough evidence. So the DA took the plea, and I was talking to you earlier. I never really had any contact with families, and that's what detectives do. It's a very difficult time. But 27 years later, he's pleading out. The family is there, his wife, his mother, his brothers, and they're all there. The district attorney, Alicia Willis, read a statement, and everybody was crying. Afterwards, the family came up and hugged me. I mean, it was so emotional. It was unbelievable. So to have that impact, and Chris Dolan ended up getting, you can see it, it's 2014 Hit of the Year by the FBI. He was given the award because you have to, not only have to identify it, you have to get a conviction. So this guy was a pimp. He had no other record prior to this murder, but he wouldn't give us the shooter because his son is also in jail and he's afraid he might get killed. But hoping we still have prints palm prints that are unidentified. So maybe that technology will come,
Wow.
Yeah. So
still prints available.
Still prints available. Yeah.
Have you ever, is his son still in prison by chance?
As far as I know, yeah. Because he didn't want to give anything up because he was afraid he'd get killed.
Yeah. So, I could see that.
But he may come forward, that someone comes forward with the information. We just need a name.
Hey, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something just in reference to APHIS. First of all, I know that it's only as good as the prints that it has in its system. And so therefore you got to populate it with a bunch of different prints. But and I really don't know the answer to this. This is my own ignorance. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Brian.
I forgot. So the reason we didn't get a hit, is this new NGI FBI system captures the flats. Those are the prints at the bottom of the print. Okay, those are usually clearer than the rolled because when a police officer rolls them and they get squished, see how clear the ridges are?
Yeah.
It hit in the FBI. So they go, well, now, everybody's saying, well, why didn't Brian O'Hara get a hit, right? So they go back, and what happened is the state decided not to put in little fingers. And I wrote in my report that it was a left little finger at the time. And sure enough, there were no left little fingers in our system because it cost that much. They saved that much money, which for me was stupid, but it was a cost-effective thing that they did. So technology is advancing and changes, facial recognition. It's unbelievable. So that's how that got solved. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Brian. Well, no, Brian. I mean, you're still involved in this to an extent. But today, man, we're solving murders today that 2 years ago we wouldn't have solved. I mean, I'll just put out a little disclaimer for everybody that's listening. If you're thinking about doing a murder or you're thinking about committing a violent crime, don't do it because the chances of you getting away with it, I'm telling you right now, not good. Would you agree, Brian? I mean, seriously, it's crazy out here nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Even though people wear gloves, they leave DNA and other things and footprints, and nose prints and ear prints. But
what I was going to ask you though, real quick, I just want to ask you this real quick, and because I don't really know the answer to it. I know I've probably asked a fingerprint person, but I want to hear it from you. Are the prints are in the system, or does that constantly search just nonstop? Never stops. So every time somebody goes into the booking room or they go into booking and then they get their prints, does that automatically just scan it towards all the other millions of prints that are in APHIS?
No. That's if you have a particular system and it's been upgraded to do that, yes. But if your system is 10 years old, no. So but they can do that if you have the right system today. You can program it to do that, and that's why But now there's another problem. You have to have people to look at those searches, and so there's all. I say it's a conveyor belt. Like at the store with the the fingerprint comes, it doesn't reach the FBI. It doesn't get into AFIS. We have hundreds of fingerprint cards in boxes because after AFIS, people sent us boxes of fingerprint, but we didn't have people to put it in. They're still in boxes.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so when you assume that, for your investigators, this guy was arrested and his fingerprints in the FBI. No, you've got to check the state, local. You've got to check everywhere. You may find the fingerprints there to get it. But yeah, so there's a lot of things where fingerprints get dropped out, and if they get rejected from the FBI, they're not going to be in there. They have to be rolled perfectly. So,
and I'm kind of surprised that. Well, I'm surprised, and you're talking about live scan, and I want to know what that is exactly. But I think we have a live scan where I work, but it just doesn't really even get touched. To tell you the truth, Brian, I think that's kind of it's a shame, but it sits right there and it never even gets touched. I will tell you this: I've just in my brain, and I worked in the medical field forever before I became a cop. We had paraffin that we'd stick their hands in paraffin and stuff. I've always kind of thought, I can't believe we haven't got into a system today in 2026 that somebody doesn't stick their hand into just stick their hand in there and it just immediately scans everything perfectly. And maybe they are on the verge of it with AI, etc. I don't know. But is that something that you think might happen at some point?
It is happening. So IDEMIA is the cutting edge. That's what we have in Massachusetts. That's pretty much the FBI's database. They now have a system. I've actually tried it, where you just wave your hand over and it scans it. The problem with the live scans are you've got to put pressure down and then you get rejected. Well, the police officer has a button that says override, and they override it. And they still put the wrong hands on and they override it. So it's operator error. It's still difficult to take a fingerprint, but this particular fingerprint system takes a picture of it, and so there's less distortion. So it is coming. They've just unveiled it. They had it a few years ago. I went to an IDEMIA conference, and it was there. That was there. Now they have a better model. So, and it does palm prints too, which is another advancement. So it's pretty cool.
that is real cool. All right, next case. What are we going to next?
So in my whole career, I'd arrive at a scene and people would say, there's nothing here. Chiefs, lieutenants, whoever, because they'd never been trained. And the only reason I succeeded was training. I got trained from the FBI. I went to Quantico for foot tracks, for advanced latents. And that just changed the world. I came back and taught troopers how to do it. And that's when you help the whole state. So this particular case, the foot tracks and the placards in the, I get called to a mother and a baby who have been killed 5 days after the murder, after the crime scene has processed the scene with black powders. And my sergeant out in the area, he was a 6'7" giant, nice guy, but he didn't have the training I had. So they had a suspect. He was 6'8", 300 pounds. They couldn't put him in the house. So I said, well, what happened? He says, well, the mother gets stabbed 37 times. Well, like a neon light, when there's blood, I'm going to find something. So I went out and I began looking on the floor and I saw these chevrons, okay, like a sergeant stripe. And I got a marker. I get down on my hands and knees and I'm marking them out. Then I got an alternate light source and I began to see more fingerprints. But I had this amazing chemical called Hungarian red. You ever hear of it? Hungarian red?
No, I actually haven't. And I've been in this business for a long time. I haven't.
So everybody's talking about luminol and, luminol.
Yeah.
You get one shot, and that's it. And it's great stuff. But I have 50 troopers. They all have to be able to find the blood with this chemical. So it's water-based. It's not methanol. It's not carcinogenic. So it's a great system. But I read about it in a journal, the International Journal of Forensics. So I started using it, and this is unbelievable. So I get down on my hands and knees. I sprayed the whole floor with this Hungarian red. Then I got a Ghostbuster vacuum. I sprayed the floor with water, and I vacuumed up the water, and I got 29 foot tracks that no one saw. Okay? So I positively identified 21 as the suspect's shoe. The suspect had size 16. How many people in the world do you think have size 16? Well, you had that we're talking about these cases, OJ, one Bruno Amali. 1% of the world has size 16. So what you try to do is narrow down all the shoes in the world. I have a Nike. I have a size 16. I called Nike and they told me they made 2,654 of these. Everybody thinks they made millions. No.
Yeah.
And they sent one pair to Springfield, Massachusetts. Okay, so but we had his shoes, so we didn't have to go, try to locate them that way. But the shoes were 29 foot tracks that no one saw because it was blood, and blood doesn't go away. Blood doesn't. You can have 100 police officers walk on the blood, but the blood is dried into the wood. It was wood. Just remember this because it's phenomenal stuff. So,
well, I want to know about this. Well, tell me a little bit more about this Hungarian red, just real quick. What does it actually do?
It reacts with the proteins in blood. So you use a leucocrystal violet. It's another great chemical, but that reacts with the heme, and so that tells you it's blood. Okay, but with the Hungarian red, there's 5 steps that you can use. Okay, so you spray it, and it becomes visible. Then you use an alternate light source, and it becomes black. Then you can lift it with a gel lifter, a white gel lifter. Use the alternate light, so it becomes orange. So you have all these steps where it may get better, and so it's one of the best. For me, it was. There's all kinds of stuff. They use Blue Star now. It's a really good chemical. But for me, I've lifted off an old steak knife that has no polyurethane on it. There's a bloody fingerprint on it. Looks like nothing. Lift it off. You get rid of the serration of the wood. And I identified that as a suspect's print. So it really is phenomenal. In 1987, I started using it. I gave a presentation at the International Association conference in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I presented my paper. My paper ended up in Switzerland. I got a note from a guy that, had read about it. So I feel pretty good about that. But it solved a number of cases. So,
well, one of the things that I learned when I was in New York City training, and I agree with you, I think training is paramount. And absolutely, I was in New York City, and while I was up there, I was training at the medical examiner's office, and they were talking about lifting prints off of skin. And the way that they were talking about it was, they said that basically using non-thermal registered tape, and just kind of like on an arm where you think that somebody might have grabbed them, and then you could wrap it around there, bring that up, and then they use magnetic fingerprint powder on there. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, Brian, I had a murder. It's still unsolved, but it was a case where a little 16-year-old girl basically got stabbed to death, and in that particular case, to me, it looked as if maybe somebody had grabbed her at some point. You know what I mean? And I thought, what I wanted to do is I told the medical examiner investigator, I said, I want to print her skin. And they said, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, then you're not moving the body. So now we're at a standstill, because I'm not letting her go with you, because you know what happens when they go to the ME's office. They get washed. That's right. And everything goes down the drain.
Yes.
So I said, no. So I called the pathologist and I said, hey, listen, I wanted to try this. And he goes, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Absolutely. And so he goes, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah. And at least we can try.
Right.
And so I called the fingerprint examiner, and he said, well, I know kind of what you're talking about. What we can try to do is at least super glue her. And that's what they did. They put a little tin up around the body, over the body. And we didn't get anything, but it was worth a shot. So just real quick, tell me, your thoughts about fingerprinting skin. And would you use what would you use?
Well, there's a chapter in the book. It's called Perry Mason. You know who Perry Mason is?
Yeah, I do.
Right. Okay. So this district attorney in this particular story is the real Perry Mason, because Perry Mason, for those of you who don't know, is a 1960s defense lawyer, but on the stand, he got everybody to confess. This district attorney in this particular case, the suspect, handsome Spanish guy, gets on the stand, and he has no idea that he has just confessed to the murder, because he said he knew about the murder at a particular time. And Adrienne Lynch is the DA. She goes, well, what if I told you only the murderer would have known at that time? So, but in this particular case, I tried to get fingerprints. You can see there's one picture I actually used an alternate light source. I can see the handprints. It's difficult to do. I know of cases where they've done it. Chris Dolan, who's in the book, actually got a fingerprint off of a body. I tried a number of times, got ridges, but again, it's like getting a print at a B&E. Yeah, you may not get it this time. You may get it the next time. You got to keep trying. So don't give up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, the cases that come to mind, I will call you, believe me. That the cases that come to mind is that I think that it would be really, really worth thinking about would be like a shaken baby case where they they had a toddler or a strangulation. I would think that would be like, to me, that's a no-brainer to try something like that. And it just seems like that's never even talked about. And I in part, I'll tell you right now, Brian, I think it's just because they don't have the training that you can even do that. So I've mentioned it, and believe me, if I ever get a case like that again, I'm gonna certainly advocate for it.
I'm glad you fought the guy. So in Massachusetts, what used to happen, we talked about Henry Lee. Henry Lee shows this picture of a body with 10 guys standing around it because we never used to protect the crime scenes. Okay, and in this particular case, the scene was protected, but it's the district attorneys in Massachusetts, because of our succeeding in all these cases, they would let us process the body. You never process the body. You'd go to the scene, I'd take pictures, and the morgue would take the body away. All that evidence is gone. But that changed in the 96, and we were able to process the scene, take the bloody clothes off the body, because when it goes to the morgue, the blood is all spread out, and any passive blood you never see. So it was critical. In one case, Kenny Martin, my boss and friend, the body went to the morgue. We had a body with no head, no hands, and cut in half. He processed the body at the morgue and got one hair out of the cavity, which ended up matching DNA on a suspect who was a serial killer. So that never would have happened because it would go to the ME, they washed the body down, and no one would ever look.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So we helped change that. Yeah.
You had kind of made a mention of this earlier, and you had said something, you just touched upon it. You said, and then OJ happened. That case happened. How did that change your world?
Okay, so in OJ, they put evidence in the trunk, right? We did too. You didn't go back to the 1 in the morning and you're going home. You bring the stuff in. That's changed. Now the trooper has to, or whoever it is, you have to go to the scene and everything has to be brought back and logged in that time.
Yeah.
So that changed, but there was no budget. Remember, no budget. So what happened is they got the new lab and DNA came in, and DNA was the money that gave us training. For the first time we ever had training, we could send people to Ron Smith, and didn't have the training. And this is my point, any department that thinks they're doing good, that their guys are doing good, and you get in-house training, you get no training. All the training I got was from outside that changed what we did. So someone's doing something better somewhere else. And when you get that training, it makes a difference.
All right. What's the next case we're going to touch upon? I'm telling you, I'm like a kid in a candy store. This stuff is fascinating to me. All these different things, because I can tell right now. I'm just curious, Brian. I'm going to ask you right now. Before, I don't want to wait till the end. Where is your statue, or where are they going to erect your statue?
No, there's no somewhere. Statue. No. My wife will not have a statue. Okay, so no. But how about April Church and April Church, the two girls? This is a tire track case. Very sad case. So these young girls were going to testify against a low-life guy. There was a friend of that they were living with. He had raped their girlfriend, but they were going to testify. So he picked them up, then he bludgeoned them to death, took them to a wooded area where there was a firing range. He had a double axle pickup truck, and he had 6 tires on the track, on the thing. And when he drove into the firing range, he had to go through a little ravine, water, mud. My friend, okay, and I had gone to the FBI. I had taken this tire course, which is phenomenal. So I go to the scene, and I see all these tire tracks. Well, it's a lot of work. So, and everybody's concerned about overtime, right? I called out 10 troopers from crime scene because we needed we needed a photograph. There was so much evidence. We worked all day. I sent the stuff down to the FBI, and the FBI examiner, Sandy Weismer, I took the course with her. She examined it. She matched 5 of those tires with the actual truck. Well, that's like a fingerprint match. Okay, it's so unique. She actually was able to find one tire that was made at this Pete's Pete's Tire Barn in Athol, Mass. That's how there's a lot of information in tires, and no one knows it. But at that particular case where tires help solve this case. And
well, hang on a minute. How did they track this one tire to that
well,
place?
you get the DOT numbers on the side. They're important. So they were able to get that number, and it was made by that particular. It was a retread, so the retread has to register the tires.
Yeah,
and that's how they did it. Oh, well, here's another case, and we talked about this. This is a case where the suspect has no emotion. Okay, so a beautiful young lady has been murdered. This guy's name is Beldotti. It's his house, and the girl who was married is his best friend's wife, and she's working in there as a secretary or administrator, whatever she wants. Anyway, he calls the police and says he came home. He went out to get a drink, came home, and found her. He left for a half hour. Well, she's nude. Parts of her body have been cut out. It was unbelievable. But when I walk in, I see this guy sitting on the stairs, and there's no emotion. And we talked about this. I have a number of cases where what they're trying to do is, what's my next step? When the murderer is trying to think about what he's doing, no emotion. And so I go in and I process the scene. He had taken plastic bags. He was going to try to take her out, but we found out the body's too heavy. So she had plastic bags around her waist, over her head. Fireman comes in, lifts it. His fingerprints I got on the bag. Another trooper who went in front of me, he was the lead trooper, investigator. He looked into a bag that contained her clothes. I got his fingerprints because we didn't have gloves, right? So, and it shouldn't have been touching anything anyway. But so now I get these a box of Glad bags, and they're coming out of the box. 1, 2, 3. So I process them, and on one of them I get this big toe print. This is not the print it is. It's the ball of the foot. But I got like 3 or 4 prints. This was the best one. So I'm back at the lab, and I'm like, this isn't a fingerprint. I'm like, So I had one of my colleagues take off her shoes. I entered it, and I said, this is a footprint. So I ended up going to jail, getting his footprint, and identifying his print. So yeah. So that's another forensics that is out there, and that's the only one that came. But you talk about cold cases in this book. I'll just say I am still in it. So I've been retired 18 years, but last year I testified in the oldest fingerprint case, 50 years, that was solved with a fingerprint case, with a fingerprint. And my boss, who I went in 1980, is the guy who lifted the print. But pretty amazing stuff. So
was it a recent solve?
It's one of those where someone came forward. So we identified the print. It was what I call a Helen Keller. You know who Helen Keller is?
Yeah. She was deaf.
It was brilliant, and she started Braille. But someone who's blind could see this print. That's how. Oh,
blind. Yeah.
Okay. So
she's deaf and blind, right?
Deaf and blind, but not trying to do. She was brilliant, a brilliant person. But so like a trooper who comes in the first day and I train him could identify this print after 10 minutes. Anyway, so we take the print. I give it to this kid, Chris Dolan, who's a civilian, later becomes a trooper. He sends it to the FBI, and we get a hit. And so the guy was in our system files, but he was not in the APHIS because he was arrested in the 60s. So in 86, they took so many cards, 400,000, and his wasn't in there. But he was in the FBI. So detectives go talk to him, and they ask him, what's the question? What's the one question you're going to ask someone when you get a fingerprint? Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
He said, nope, never been to Bedford, Mass. Thank you, home run. except you can't convict on a fingerprint alone. So they have nothing else. They don't move forward. They go back and interview him 5 years later. And now the murder is of a woman who was a bank president's wife. She's found in a home, beaten and stabbed. Her car is stolen. The fingerprint is found on the outside of the vehicle. But now they go back to this this guy who committed that we get the fingerprint on, and they talk to him, and he goes, well, I wasn't there, but I was asked. It was a mafia hit. He goes, my cousin asked me to go with him. Now he's implicating himself in the murder.
Yeah.
He doesn't know we have a fingerprint. They
Yeah.
still don't have enough to go forward. So in 2022, new detectives, new cold case squad, they go out and interview everybody this guy ever worked with. And this, you talked about it's footwork, it's police work. And they talked to a woman who used to dumpster dive for checks for him. He was a check casher, a forger. And she said he carried a knife and told her that he had stabbed someone. So that was enough. Went forward, and he was convicted last year. So still making a difference.
That's great. Are you still getting called to go to court?
I have another case. I just testified in March. It's a 47-year-old homicide. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so they're still calling me, and that's another great case. It's yet to go forward, but the guy is in jail. The guy's in jail, and it was a case. Oh, I'll tell you, Chris Dolan, in the book, you read about him. He's unbelievable. So he went through, in another case that they don't have in this, he went through 12,000 fingerprints manually, and he found the fingerprint. All right. This case, he went through 75,000 manually. We knew it was a left thumb, so that was easy to go through. But still, no one's going to do that except for Chris. Guess what? He didn't get a hit. And now he was going to go to Springfield PD, which is our largest city west of Boston. And he was going to go through this system, but he wouldn't have found him. What happened was a mafia guy died. The funeral director called the DA and said, hey, try this name, Billy Jones, or whatever his name is. They go, has never been arrested, but he had a taxi print. He was a taxi driver. So he took his prints, civilian prints. It was him. So he's 71. He's got no legs. They went down to Florida and found him, but then brought him back.
Wow. Yeah. See, I've always kind of wondered why we're not able to, that maybe we should just print people when they die, just to have them
put them in the system. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guarantee you that would eliminate just all kinds of cases.
Yes.
It would be very interesting to do, because unfortunately when they die and they get buried, that's it, man. Those cards are going to sit there forever, which gives me another question just real quick that we didn't really talk about. But those cards, the fingerprint cards from like the 30s, the 40s, 20s, maybe all way back to as far as they started doing them, and they ended up getting shipped to the FBI. Does the FBI still have all of those actual cards somewhere?
Yeah. If they took them in, yeah. They have them. They used to have files. Now everything's moved down to West Virginia, but it used to be in Washington. And yeah, so they're there. But again, half of them get rejected because they couldn't classify them the old way. All right, they had to have A quality prints to get classified, and most of the prints came from Massachusetts were B and C. That was in our system. And but thank God the FBI did have A and B, but now with live scan, everybody thinks it's perfect. It's not. We get crappy prints from live scan because everybody's different. Some people perspire. Some people have cold, clammy hands. As you get older, it's like a tire. Your fingerprints get bald, so it's more difficult to get a fingerprint. Diseases and I worked 5 years on mutilated fingerprints. You know what those are?
No, I want to know about it though, because I know I read that in your CV, and that was interesting.
So Massachusetts, the FBI said Massachusetts was the hub of mutilated fingerprints. So basically, all the drug dealers were coming from Dominican Republic. They're getting arrested in Massachusetts. They would get deported. They would mutilate their fingerprints, come back, get arrested again, and the fingerprints couldn't determine their fingerprints because they were mutilated. And the mutilations went from cuts to actually having surgeons remove the patterns, and those are the best. But I spent 5 years. I started with 100. I ended up with over 600. Those 600 were responsible for 3,500 arrests and not to count all the court appearances, right? It's just so people trying to hide their fingerprints, like the what's going on now with immigration, is insane. So,
just out of curiosity, how does a surgeon remove the prints? Is it like dermablation or just a...
No, they cut the print, the core of the print out that has deltas. So they pull the skin tight, and you will see just a line, and you'd say, "Oh, that's live scan." No, it's because they were mutilated, and it's pretty unbelievable stuff. But we had the most fingerprints that the FBI had, so I went around the country trying to find, like, Arizona. So a friend of mine went to teach in Arizona. He asked the latent examiners there, "Are you seeing the mutilated prints?" They went, "What?" Now Arizona should know, California should know, Florida should know. I called Florida. Yeah, we know about them. We don't see them. You don't see them because you're not training your people to look for them. That's the bottom line. So,
yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about this last case today. That one about the crabs, etc. I think that's an interesting one to kind of leave on, and then we'll save the others for when you come back and talk about your book. Because, quite frankly, I just sitting here talking to you, Brian, if you would be willing to, I think we need to have you back. I mean, down the line, because you're just you're an encyclopedia in just fingerprints, and that's not even your only specialty. You've got a lot of other, when you were talking about the tire prints, I'm thinking of My Cousin Vinny. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah, great movie.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about that last case and start us off with telling us about that one, because that's just an interesting case that's unusual.
Okay, so it's a case in Salem, Massachusetts. Martha Brailsford is the woman. She's out walking her dog. She meets this other guy. His name's Mamoni, and he is a liar, a cheat, an imposter. So he's working at Parker Brothers, Monopoly.
Yeah.
They're located in Salem, Mass. He's a so-called engineer, but he never got an engineering degree. He's a pilot. He never got he's almost DiCaprio, when he was the imposter. So everything in his life is a lie. Well, he has a big boat, a big sleuth, 28-foot sailboat, and he invites women out to go for a ride. And when he does, he takes off his clothes and tries to sexually assault them. We find this after. So Martha is married. Her husband's a ship captain, I think, and he's out of town. So she goes for a boat ride and never comes back.
At A. O'Hara.
People see her on the boat, and they get him into the station. He lies, never saw her, So I get called with a chemist to go look at the boat. We go over the boat. I look for fingerprints. I dust, it's all white. Well, what every ship captain does after he comes back is he washes the boat down.
Yeah.
But on the sail, my friend Bob Pino, the chemist, noted that it was possible blood stains, but he never could get any samples out of it. Anyway, my job, and this is a Bill Belichick, who's really off the radar now, but his job was just do your job. So my job, I took pictures of everything, distance, medium, and close. Well, one of my close-up shots, I didn't know it till I read there was a book written, and I'm reading the book, and one of the detectives had run into the district attorney and said, the picture Brian O'Hara took shows X marks the spot where the body was dumped. A fisherman had been out scalloping, picked her up, and she's hanging in the nets. So I get called back for that. Well, there's a picture here, is what she looked like.
Show that picture of the body, Amanda.
So all her skin was gone. The muscles were there, intact. The only thing that was there were her hands. This friction ridge we have on her hands. The crabs didn't eat that, or her feet. It was such a bizarre, murder. But around her waist was a red, white, and blue, brilliant red, white, and blue diving belt. Guess what? The matching diving belt was on I photographed on his boat. And so his wife also dove. So they brought him in for questioning. He changed his stories. Then he fled. They actually, in the book you read, in the book that was written about this, they actually contacted the famous witch from Salem, And she
Yeah.
told him where he was, or where the body was, and where, allegedly anyway. So,
Wow.
but that's, so he was caught and convicted because of that belt that he left around her. He said he changed the story. He said she fell off the boat. Yeah, but her head was hit. She had been beaten and strangled, and
That's crazy.
and the weight belt. So, but the title of the chapter is "One Picture's Worth 1,000 Words." That's
Yeah, it's a good name for it for sure.
Yeah, count murder in Massachusetts Bay. So
interesting. That's an interesting deal. I'm going to look into that for sure. Now, you do consulting. What if somebody wants to find you for some consulting work? I know that I found you. Well, actually, I found you.
Well,
I
on
found you
LinkedIn, they can find me.
from Dave.
I gave my email if anybody wants to do that, but it's O'Hara Forensic Consulting at outlook.com.
Yeah, and you can type his name in, and he's on LinkedIn. And Dave McNeil, man, you're like you're a hero to him for sure. And that's why I was like, oh yeah, then I definitely got to get this guy on. And so if you're looking, is that all correct?
That is
if you're looking for somebody that to consult, now I would think that you're probably in the realm of expert witness easily. And do you do some of that too?
I do. I've had some great success stories privately. So, so I do that. People send me, I have a great art case that's going right now, but I won't talk about it at this point. But
No,
I'm not an artist, but I have an art case that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
I'll be
That's right. You'll have to come back and tell us about that. Your book. Let's show the picture of his book. That's, like I said, he's. I want to send this if you showed it earlier. The rest of the story. It's a memoir by Brian O'Hara. This is going to be coming out real soon, and I'm sure that most of these stories, if not all of the ones that we've talked about, and then more, are going to be in this book, and it's definitely going to be interesting. One of the things that what was the reason for you writing this book, actually? Because you'd said something to me about this before.
Yeah, so we have an amazing museum, and it's in Northborough, Massachusetts. I went there, and I was like amazed at what they had, but they didn't have anything on forensics. They had one book on one particular case, which I was involved with, but none of the cases. So I talked to them about getting a video kiosk. So you can walk in like they do at a science museum, press this, and you get a Whitey Bulger or an Aaron Hernandez, the famous Patriot killer, or different cases that were there. So
Are you? Is that open to the public by chance?
2 days a week. They have open Saturdays and Tuesdays, and they give tours. They have the famous Norman Rockwell, where a trooper sitting at the bar with the little kid. That's the famous painting. But they really do it nice. They give tours, and so I want a forensic section because they don't. They have diving, they have horses, they have motorcycle, but nothing about forensics. And state police, since the 90s and before that, had done great work with fingerprints, foot tracks, tire tracks. So I want to get that message out there, and trying to get some other people to write. Anyway.
I got to tell you, Brian, I've thoroughly enjoyed tonight. I've learned
I
a lot.
appreciate it. I can't tell you. I mean, this is therapy for me, I guess. I'm old.
No, seriously. Well, I'm getting old, but I tell you what, I'm a little obsessed with this kind of stuff, and I've learned more than one thing here tonight, and so I appreciate your time. I really do. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this episode tonight, and like I said, I think we're going to probably have to have him on down the line and talk a little bit more about some other things and other cases for sure. I want to, there's that picture that you're talking about, right?
So they have the bar set up there where you can take your picture.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's real cool. That's really cool. Do you still kind of go and visit with the young cadets in the Massachusetts State Police and so forth?
No, I sit in my chair.
Do you?
A chair and drink coffee and wine.
Now, these other agencies that you went to, did you have a pretty good time working for those agencies as well?
Oh my gosh, I had the best time in the world. So I worked for the Department of Defense identifying bombers in Iraq. Okay, so the Army would print and send the prints back to us. Latent examiners would enter them in a computer. One day, a print I put in the week earlier, I get a call. The FBI have what they had called heat teams, high priority teams. They go out and arrest these bombers. So they got a guy in cuffs, hands behind, and they take a live scan, and they hit my print. I felt pretty good. So
that's awesome.
So that's what I did there. I worked for Ron Smith in Houston. They shut down their lab. We went through 8,000 cases. We solved so many cases that had been unsolved. Had a blast. Had the experts from all over the country coming in. We had over 120 latent examiners. I survived 120 for 5 years. So, but I had a great time down there. Then I wanted to be somewhere warm. My wife let me go down to Osceola Sheriff's Department. That's in Florida. And,
I knew I butchered that name. That's.
I couldn't say it either until I know it now. But it was great there. And but then someone invited me back for this mutilated fingerprint. Deborah Barrow, she's a major that used to work for me, and she said, what are you doing down in Florida? Come back. And for 5 years, I had a blast identifying these mutilated prints. I'd have to search one print 90 times and then find the guy. That's how good the mutilations are.
Are you back in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I live in Massachusetts. Yeah, I want to.
All right.
I want to be somewhere warm, but not yet.
Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brian. And I want to thank Dave McNeil, who was on the last week, because Dave turned us on to him, and that's what it's about, man. You're kind of part of my stable of my experts that I'm. There's some seriously big time people that have been on the show that I just really appreciate, and now I can see why he looks up to you and many others, no doubt.
Dave's unbelievable. He's one of the smartest and hardworking guys, but he's one of the funniest. When we do classes, it's an enjoyable class. I'll tell you.
I was lucky enough to sit through one in North Carolina, and he's the bomb. I immediately was a fan. So and you do teach too. I just want to make sure that we put that out there in case somebody's looking for an instructor.
40 years, yeah.
So definitely, I'm going to be mentioning your name many times, no doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I won't keep any more of Brian's time. Brian, thank you again. If you want, oh man, it's been an honor, really. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you like and subscribe, please. It takes about a microsecond. It's a couple of seconds. And if you don't subscribe, then it just helps the algorithm is what it does. And it helps me out. Make sure you click on that QR code. It'll take you to my Instagram page. Follow me there. And then follow me on TikTok, which has just exploded. It's went crazy. Brian, you have no idea. I thought that site was really kind of for young people. But believe it or not, there's a lot of interaction on there. And so that's my TikTok page. I put different – see, Dave doesn't really know what platforms are, but he's learning. He's learning. They're like, hey, what's your brain? That's right. He's like, and I'll help you. But Dave was like, Brian was like, somebody asked me about, hey, what platforms are you on? And he goes, platform? What's a platform? So I'm learning too, buddy. And we need to get you up to speed. And so make sure that you follow me on TikTok and go to my Detective Jason White Facebook page and go ahead and follow me on that too. I actually interact with people. And I put different things on each one of them. So you're going to get a lot of bang for the buck. You can find a lot of different interesting things on each one of them. And I just like talking to people. So it's kind of a fun thing for me. And I like turning you on to good content like this. And so once again, I really do appreciate it. Check us out next week. Next week, I'm going to have somebody here from Beaumont, Texas, a homicide detective from Beaumont, Texas, who's going to talk about some guy's wife that was disposed of, and he's going to get in real depth. It's a cold case that they were able to do a lot of tremendous work on, and they broke it. And awesome. After I heard the story, it is awesome. I mean, their tenacity is impressive, and that's what I love. There are some shining stars throughout this country, and he is one of them. And that's why I'm really excited about that. And he's going to talk about that case, which just recently got adjudicated. So it's a fascinating case. So join us next week, and that's going to be January the 30th at 7 p.m. live. Central Standard Time. And until you got any final thoughts, let us have it, Brian. And if not, we will take it out. You got anything else?
God bless and help you with your cases. And I do appreciate you having me on. So
thank you so much. By the way, just real curious, if somebody's got a case that's just kind of one of those bizarre fingerprint, footprint, any kind of print kind of cases from tire tracks, etc., and they're law enforcement, I'm sure that they could probably reach out to you and you'd be willing to visit.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Good to know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. Amanda, it's good to have you back. She wasn't here last week and I was freaking out. And she's back now. So thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you being here. Great job as always. And until next week, take us out, Amanda.